Welcome on Line. And today with Ezra and Manuel, we are analyzing a song by Mad Gleams, Sunlight in Her Hair. Ezra, why did you pick that song?
So I wrote this song, and it is one of the compositions I'm more proud of my songs, and it's one of the more symbolic maybe of my songs. So I thought it'd be interesting to do, and yeah, I thought it would be interesting to do line by line on something that I wrote, and maybe learn something new about it, or find out that I did a poor job of communicating. It'll be interesting either way.
It's an excellent song. And I actually really appreciate the actual composer and author of the lyrics to come and analyze it with us. It's awesome, dude. Like, thank you, man. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
They cut down crows to clip their wings. Their mothers teach them everything. From their gazing eyes, she'd slump in her chair, but she wore sunlight in her hair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take this one. There's this crows thing, and that brings up this idea, right, where they have an awfully good memory, right, and they're social creatures. So when I see the mothers teach them everything, it's like they've been taught bad things, and they're just acting them out because they're taught. And then they have to clip the wings of the crows because they're a nuisance in the town or whatever. Like they're attacking someone because they have bad blood. And yeah, so and then the she in the third line, from the gazing eyes she'd lump in her chair. I think she's the one who's been had bad blood against, and she's feeling the threat of the crows coming at.
Okay, interesting. When I thought of crows, I always thought of emo kids, and clip their wings. It's to make them not fly away, to make them obey, to keep them, let's say, in line. Their mothers teach them everything. That line is hard because it felt like there is a reason father is not mentioned. From their gazing eyes, she would slump in her chair. Well, I don't know what slump means. Like, I did not check it out. Can you tell me?
Yeah, slump or slouch. It's like she would try to take up as little space as possible in her chair. Sink. So she's sinking from the gazing eyes.
So also drawing away.
Maybe she can't look them in the eyes after cutting their wings. That's it. That's what I project.
So in the for me, in the first line, it's like I was thinking of it's like the boys. So the boys, I was thinking that the boys cut down the crows to clip their wings. And So I was thinking of a dark masculine kind of presence, or a dark male presence. And then I thought their mothers teach them everything. Like, how do you get bad boys from bad mothers? Maybe. So there's like a cycle here, because there's going to be this girl who's, slumping from their gazing eyes. And so in a way, it's setting her up as like threatened by them. Like maybe they're going to clip her wings or try to. And so then I thought it was interesting to see like their mothers teach them everything. So it's like, maybe they're going to hurt this girl, but, they came from a girl. So it's like, chicken and the egg here with these bad boys. And then I'm wondering what you guys think of that she slumps in her chair from their gazing eyes, but she wears sunlight in her hair. So it's like she can't hide that sunlight. So it's like she's trying to not be noticed, but she can't. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so I feel like there's an attraction there, right? Like the sunlight is drawing you in. So that goes with the not being able to hide, right? Like there's a drawing in. But I think there's also a purifying element in the sunlight, right? Like there's a promise of, well, if we're going with your story, there's a promise of breaking the cycle in that she has it. But yeah. But she also doesn't have it, right? Like she's wearing it, like so it's not herself. It's a accessory in some sense. But yeah,
It's
the
a dye
promise is.
job. It's a dye job. She dyed her hair.
Yeah, and maybe that she wants to have the attention if she dyed her hair.
Yeah, maybe.
I thought it's beautiful, actually, because despite everything, even the cruelty of cutting down wings of somebody, some animals, crows, they still would come up to their mother, look up and see the sunlight bounce off her hair. I like that.
Yeah, I definitely think like something about beauty is like a theme, perhaps. So it's something about this beauty that she or like wearing sunlight in her hair, like beautiful hair. Maybe she colored her hair. Maybe she's like the emo kid who colored her hair, and in a way it's drawing attention, but then that is scary.
Yeah, because I feel it's also out of touch with the other stuff, right? So it's not connected in some sense.
Yeah, and like crows are black, right? So it's like this darkness is sort of suggested at the beginning of the song, in this kind of dark world where people do dark things. And even though she's hiding, it's like, but she is wearing the sunlight in her hair. So she's, drawing attention. Maybe it also I don't know if that's like she dyed her hair, or, which I was kind of thinking of, I think. But, it could also be like, I don't know, like she's blonde or something. And it's, it's just hard to ignore this bright golden light, whatever.
Yeah, it's yin and yang, like comparison, black dark rose versus, yeah, exactly, like, yeah, versus sunlight.
And maybe if their mothers teach them everything, it's like they know like maybe there's a purity of sunlight, but it's also like maybe she doesn't know, like an innocence. It's like they know stuff, but maybe it's not the right stuff, but she's like more innocent or something.
Yeah.
All right. Comes natural at an early age. Little boys play little games, but they don't quite play fair. And she wore sunlight in her hair.
So I feel the comes natural at an early age is picking up at this lack of discernment between good and bad. They're just doing what's in front of them. They just do what they know to do. And trying to have fun as much as they can, right? Like doing their little games, like finding new ways to explore, I guess, the world. The boys here definitely lived through that phase, trying to mess with stuff and capturing stuff and maybe crossing a few lines that shouldn't be crossed. And yeah, like they don't quite play fair, and it's like, yeah, when you're young, it's hard to know how to play fair. Even if you do know how to play fair, like your emotions are a lot stronger relative to you back down, right? So you end up in these cycles or whatever, right? Like these fights with people that you just can't get out of. And so yeah, like from that perspective, looking up at mom standing at the side with sunlight, she's like a beacon where you can get back away from the dark world and hide in her skirt.
I think in here the experimentation comes naturally at early age. Kids discover stuff. They discover the limits, how far they can go. And even though it's expressed through a little game, they still discovering their life and the borders, let's say. They don't quite play fair. Well, I guess that's because they don't know any better yet. They haven't been smacked by the life and showing them what's allowed and what's not. Yeah, and it's natural to discover things. But there is this constant that goes through everything. Her hair doesn't change, keeps wearing sunlight. So her sunlight is constant, even though boys mature and they play games and they experiment with life and what's fair and what's not.
Yeah, and like like they don't play fair. So like maybe their mothers didn't teach them to play fair. Also, you did point out that there's no father. It's like if their mothers teach them everything, maybe that suggests that there is no father, or their fathers aren't teaching them. And maybe that's why they don't know how to play fair or play nice, or that's why they're, mutilating crows. Just sort of a dark thing for them to be doing. And and then I think I was also thinking of how it comes natural at an early age that they have a natural like animal attraction to the sun. It's like they're attracted to her, and she was trying to hide from them. Maybe they're scary, etc. but they're like they're being drawn in, and it's like in a way they don't have control over it, which also makes me think of maybe there's no fathers, and so nobody could teach them how to control their urges.
That's interesting, right? Like, there is a thing though here. If she's slouching in a chair, and if she keeps rejecting her kids, basically, because that's what it is. She made kids, but she's not capable to teach them well, so she's like brushing them off. And not accepting them, not giving them context to all the ideas they have in their head, because ideas are okay, that's like super fine. It's important to have a adult, let's say, role model that can explain you what is going on, put everything into context. Yeah, you could spare a lot of trouble for kids just by talking to them. Like,
Well, yeah, and like I think I see it as like so maybe they're like it's a song about kids, and like I see her as like she's a kid too, so it's like it's like a little girl surrounded by these like little boys who maybe didn't have fathers, or maybe their mothers weren't stellar, and so it's like a very dangerous environment. And I think one of the ideas is like something about like beauty, and maybe like expressing beauty, or being a beautiful person, and the like horror of that makes people beeline toward you, and like come after you, and it attracts people to you, and not all that attention is positive. It could be real nasty. It could be like predators hunting you or something. You're just like a crow for them to play with,
the empathy is not yet developed, let's say, at early age, unless you have a parent who can teach you what empathy is and what pain is correctly.
Similar with like like sexual compulsion, right?
Which
it's
is
like
also normal and
yeah,
natural.
normal, natural, and then it's like we know that it can go bad. It's like if things aren't in place, if the society or something doesn't mature the people correctly, then there could be bad things. And I think the next stanza is some of the bad things. Maybe one of you guys can read the bad things.
Oh, bad things. I'm sure they had a lot of fun. The night they blotted out the sun. Now nothing grows, and nobody cares that she wore sunlight in her hair.
What happened, Nodrik?
Oh, yeah, I think they killed her. Like they murdered her or something.
It doesn't sound very good.
No, it's just like
Blotting it out.
because like that one part, but there was another thing. They talk. She wore sunlight in her hair. It feels like that past tense now is like really noticeable. Like if before that it was kind of melancholic, now it's actually daunting. The past tense of she wore sunlight in her hair. Oh, it's like by the third stanza, you actually, why is it in the past again? Like you start to ask yourself that question. Yeah, they had a lot of fun, I'm sure. So there is a storyteller here, which shaped up in the third act, let's say, who kind of looking backwards, thinking about the type of boys. Actually, remembering that like Stanley Kubrick movie, was it Stanley Kubrick? Clockwork Orange, like Mechanic Orange. How is it called?
A Clockwork Orange, yeah.
Clockwork Orange. It's hard for me because like I seen it in Russian back in the day. But it kind of feels like that. That kind of gang just like rushed in and they all have a lot of fun doing atrocious things. And here is a storyteller who talks about that. And he talks about specific night. So the sun wasn't, like actual sun was not there at night. But the lady that was in question, she was compared to the sun before, so they mean her. Nothing grows and nobody cares. Like also, she probably was somebody who kept things going. She was that force for life around. Probably took care of the garden, took care of the house. And without her, all of that just wastes. And then there is a memory. Now the past tense, she wore sunlight in her hair, makes sad sense.
So I get this image of a play yard, and then there's the one side where the boys play, and then there's the other side where the girls play. And the girls always on the other side, and the boys they look at her, right? Like there's this magical thing on the other side, but it's untouchable and it's alien. But what I feel that they're talking about in this part is they chose to have fun, right? Like they gave over to Bacchus, I guess, right? Like they just went and did what they wanted, and so they blotted out the sun themselves, right? So they embraced the night within themselves, right? And as a consequence of blotting out the sun, like they couldn't see her anymore. Like she wasn't relevant to them anymore. Like she didn't stand out. They couldn't see her. And they went into a sort of a nihilistic phase. It's like just they narrowed on the pursuit. They narrowed on their action, and they just wanted to wreck whatever havoc they were doing in their games. and there was no generative aspect, right? Like they lost sight of the generative, and they lost sight of the empathy that we were talking about, right? Like, so you can imagine that was actually happening before they start clipping the crow's wings. Yeah, and the line, nobody cares that she wore sunlight in her hair. Like, so there's a feeling of disenchantment, right? Like this, like, oh, she was special, but no, she's not. Like there's some devaluing going on there.
Yeah. I love that. That was awesome. Both of you. That was really cool. You're pointing things out to me I did not notice. I love that you're pointing out that that the narrator appears, you know, so then I'm like hearing this and I'm like, oh yeah, I show up. I like, it's like I reveal myself behind a curtain. Like, see, I'm here and this is my perspective, you know. This is my relevance. This whole, you know, this is how I see it or whatever. So I thought that that was funny that I show up. It also it seems interesting that if she is being blotted out, if nobody cares and nothing grows, you said it could even be like she was murdered. So in a way, it's like she could be exiting the song, and then it's kind of interesting, maybe that I'm showing up. So it's like the narrator is now connected to the girl, because you know, they don't appear in the same place at the same time. So it's like, you know, maybe he was the girl all along or something. You know, like that's why he's, you know, writing this or something. That's why he showed up. You know. And yeah, and I really connect with everything you guys said. And it's like I was thinking now about, like, you know, blotting. It's like they were drawn to beauty. Like I like the kids on like one half of the playground, and like they're drawn to the beauty, and it's like but they're not disciplined. They're not they don't understand how to behave, or it's like they don't understand, so it's like they just get their hands on it and then it's like they use it up and it's gone. And it's like, you know, that might be fine to do with like cake, you know, or like, you know, food, pizza, you know, but if you do that with beauty itself, that's going to be a problem, because, you know, it's like here we were drawn to the beauty. It was calling us towards something real, and we just, like, you know, used it up, and then it was like it never existed. So I like that it's like nothing grows and nobody even cares that she ever wore sunlight in her hair. Like it doesn't even matter. It's like it's interesting you said a thing about crows having great memory. And it's like, I feel like these boys don't have a memory. It's like they don't even understand that anything's important enough to remember or like learn from experience. So it's like that just happened, and then, you know, we just move on.
I actually now see something. I imagining a boy who liked a girl with sunlight in her hair. And then he noticed her being hunted down by the same boys who used to torture animals and shit. Somehow, like, that one stood out to me right now.
Well, yeah, and then it could be like drawing a line between the boy who recognizes beauty, but like, well, in a way, if it's like they were seeing this beauty and it's like untouchable in a way, perhaps like that was demonic there, or on some level, their desire that like they should get to have it. So it's like they dragged it down from its pedestal. And so then now it's not special anymore. And then this guy who's like, I just arrived at the story because I'm sort of standing outside and I'm not an active participant in the story. It's like maybe that shows the narrator has a respect like for the beauty. Like I'm not gonna you know, like we need to be careful with that to not fuck it up or something.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a story being told about events that happened that one night.
So I also get the sense, right, that this idea for that they don't have a place to grow, right? Like they don't have a memory. Like I feel like that's the lack, right? Like that's the shying, the slumping away in the chair, like the not taking on that responsibility to create the space for growth. Yeah, I feel like there's a resonance there.
Mm. So does that like almost implicate, like, does that implicate her in a way? Like I'm hearing a little bit that like, you know, it's sort of like she wore it in her hair.
Mhm.
Did she really embody it? And then like if she's slumping away, is that like a failing to take responsibility? So it's almost like you make yourself stand out and you make yourself beautiful, but like how deep is that beauty or something? Or you know, are you are you
Well,
an active participant in the, you know?
yeah. So in a sense, right, like if you're taking that perspective, you're the prize, right? Like you're what everything revolves around. And so in some sense, you have to take responsibility that what revolves around you is actually good. Because if you're this gleaming sunbeam and what revolves around you is actually bad, then you're not doing a good job of shining the light on the space around.
I actually noticed something from the first stanza that kind of went further. There is a blame here on mothers, on female part in general, which goes through somehow. Like on one side, there is this beauty. On the other side, apparently mothers, it's their fault that there is no dad, obviously. I'm like, I mean it sarcastically, guys. Like it's not always in a relationship, two people take part, and that's how it works.
That, yeah, that's interesting though. That makes me think of like,
Mhm.
again, this like cycle, because it's like we could put all the blame on the mothers, but then it's like, but where are the fucking fathers? Maybe it's their fault that they're not there, you know? But then it's like, but is it all their fault because they're not there? Because, you know, maybe these mothers aren't doing such a hot job. So it's like, I like that that it's a bit hard to,
Mm, yeah, to find the beginning, whose fault it is. Well, boys without fathers will probably produce boys without fathers. That's it. And men who abuse women will produce children who abuse women, I guess. It's that cycle that goes around. Yeah. Excellent. I like the hidden darkness in the sunlight. Super, super nicely done.
She walks home alone through the park. She was never afraid of the dark. Your eyes adjust, there's no one there. And she wears sunlight in her hair.
Yeah, again, past tense. Like as if it's a story that happened that one time, and like the narrator comes back to that one point in time. It's the past tense of the thing suggests that she was never afraid. The dark. Your eyes adjust. There is no one there. And here is interesting because your eyes adjust. There is no one there. It's like present, which is which I would like to ask you, Ezra, why that part is in present. Because now it seems like the singer is stalking her. Sorry, the
Well,
song.
I actually have an idea about why it's present. Because
Yeah.
well, first of all, right, like she's gone, right? In the last time, right? But she's gone because you don't pay attention to her, right? And this in this part you do pay attention to her, but she's not real, right? Like there's an element where what you're looking at, like you clear your eyes and it's not there. It's like so there's an element where it's your imagination, right? Like it's this, and sometimes it's this ideal that's always been with you, right? And you see it in the world for a second. So that's the
Yeah.
way I look at
And
that.
she wears sunlight in her hair in present tense here. Ezra, why did you put it in present tense? Is she now a guild imagination ghost?
Well, so imagine, like imagine that you're writing this, okay? And then you get through those first 3 stanzas, okay? And so, does it end there? Is that the end? Because if you end it there, you've told a story, and it's a kind of a, maybe it's kind of a brutal story. And so I think my experience was I got to that verse and I was like, ugh. I don't know how I feel about this being the ending of the song here. Like, is that all there is to say?
I want to resurrect her.
Well, then it's funny. I kind of like I was inspired to do this thing with the present tense because I remembered a song that I knew that was a very different song. It was a pop punk song by Blink-182 called Adam's Song. Okay.
Oh, I actually
And
like them.
yes, and in Adam's Song, it's kind of ambiguous what the song's about, but I always thought that the song was kind of about this kid who's like maybe going to commit suicide. And I noticed that they did this thing where at the end of the song, it repeats the chorus in the present tense. And it's really unclear what that means. And that came back to me, and I thought, well, the reason that it's unclear is if she's walking home alone through the park, and it's in the present tense, and we could be talking about the night that the thing happened. So we could be going back in time and looking at this moment for some reason. Or it could also mean that, she didn't die and she's still here and like, you could interpret it either way. And I did that because I didn't know the answer. I felt that I did not know if she died and or what that meant if she did die. So it's like even if I was to go back in time and I'm going to go back to that moment, for me, if that's the interpretation, then it's like this happened in this park. She was walking alone. That'd be like a bad in the dark. Maybe that's where this blotting out the sun occurred. But we return to like her mindset, and now we're in her mind, and she's not afraid of the dark. So I don't, I don't exactly know, and that's part of why I chose the song.
So I want to look at it from the perspective of her embodying the ideal, because I really like the ideal thing. And then it's like, so first of all, she's walking back alone, right? So in some sense, she's no longer the center that everything revolves around, right? but she's going a different path. And then the second thing is, she was never afraid of the dark, right? And like, first implication is, well, that's good, because, but the second is like, no, you should be afraid of the dark. Like, it's healthy to be afraid of the dark. And it's like, oh, maybe you need to be afraid of the dark to embody the ideal correctly, right? Like, maybe if you're not afraid of the dark, you create this environment where it's okay, right? Like where the dark is acceptable, because you're not disgusted by it in some sense. So yeah, like I think this never, right? Like there's not only something wrong with the kids who don't know better, right? And they're actually enacting the dark, but there's also something wrong with her, because she has the role of discernment, and she's not living up to the role of discernment. And then you get your relationship in there as well, right? Like, so now you're in your role of discernment, right? And you're looking at her, and then you're not sure, like, what are you looking at, right? Like she's not there, but the sunlight still is, right? Like so there is a redemption there. Like Nodrik was talking about reviving her in some sense, right? But there's also a redemption that the sunlight is back, right? Or at least the recognition of the sunlight is back, right? So there's a path there back into the light. So yeah, that's what I'm getting out of it.
I don't know. I just think it's still narrator who talks. It's not her mindset, even though, Ezra, you said it's her mindset. I think at this point it's wishful thinking, and it comes in the third line. Your eyes adjust, there is no one there. Like, there is like both parts are past tense and memory. She walks home, although she walks is present tense. She walks home alone through the park. She was never afraid of the dark. Your eyes adjust, there is no one there. And she wears sunlight in her hair. I think at this point it's imagination going on. Like that desire, inner optimism for the story to end in a positive way, in a sense. I do disagree with blaming her, though, for wearing a sunlight in her hair, just because guys are badly educated and generally fucked up doesn't mean that she's at fault here. And by the way, I also think people should not be afraid of the dark at all. Like, there can be some amount of carefulness, but you should recognize what darkness is, and you should be prepared to face it. Because when you're afraid of the dark, you are not prepared to handle things, let's say. Yeah.
Well, I think
my
it's definitely
projection.
I think it's definitely true that maybe that yeah, it's sort of like if you're so if you're afraid, okay, like in fight or flight fear, you're not gonna, like, when you're in fight or flight, you don't have access to like higher level thinking, you know? So it's sort of like if you're in fight or flight about things that require like your higher level thinking, then that will not be helpful, right? So like if the dark is like an abstract concept and you're afraid of it, that could be unhelpful, because then you're not going to be like present enough of mind to deal with it. Like, you know, like you could just run away from things that you think are the darkness, and then kind of reciprocally narrow that way. But then there's also like, you know, fear can be wise. If it's like a snake is popping out at you, then, you know, you should be afraid and run away. And like that is wisdom. And if you take that moment to be like, oh, look at the snake, and like, oh, it's got a nice, like, oh, wow, it's beautiful gleaming eyes of the snake, and then it like bites your face, this is not gonna go well. What do you guys think about, like, I guess I feel like at the end, there's a little bit of like a play on words where we're saying that she's walking home alone in the dark, and she was never afraid of the dark. And then I kind of feel like the next two lines could almost be like an argument. It's explaining why. Like, she's not afraid of the dark because your eyes adjust to the darkness, and then you can see. So it's like, when you step into like the moonlight or something, you step outside at night and you can't see anything, and it's like dark, and you could be really afraid. But this is like this idea of like, but if you stand there and your eyes adjust, then there is no like monster that's gonna pop out at you. And then and she wears sunlight in her hair. Like, she has the sunlight in her hair, so like she doesn't need to be afraid of the dark, because it's like she has the sunlight with her.
So there's a thing that we didn't point out yet, right? So you is the second person, right? So in the song, the listener is now talked to, because who else is the you, right? So that's a third party, or maybe a fourth, but like there's a third party included, right? Like, so like I feel like when you say your eyes adjust, right? Like, you're invited to go into that place, to go in that park, right? To look at the girl who's not afraid, right? And then there's no one there, like, but yeah, like
That's so interesting, because having written it, like, I know that that there's a reason that it says there's no one there,
right?
It could say there's nothing there, or it could say, there, like, it could say, not say your eyes adjust, it could say, it's okay to walk in the dark because there's stars out and you can see enough and it's fine. So it's like, I know there's something going on with that no one there. And it makes me think of like a kind of like a non-self or egoless, like we're moving into this realm of the ghost. It's like there might have been a real girl, but now we're looking at the ideal itself or something. So there's no one there. There's not like a person there. I don't know.
So, and then I like this idea where you're contrasting the sunlight to the being afraid of the dark. And I kind of get, right, where having the sunlight would make you not afraid of the dark, but she's wearing it as an attribute, right? Like, it's not hers. Like, that's where my problem is. It's like, yeah, like that's unearned wisdom. Like, nope.
Well, and then what I like about the ambiguities here, right, is like there's a sense in which you could take this as like, like, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Like, I got the sunlight in my hair. It's like it's your hair is like, it's kind of part of you, but it's not really alive. So like, maybe there's something going on there. And but then I also like that we just talked about the blotting out the sun and all this horrible shit that happened. So like, it may be the valley of death.
Maybe they shaved her head. She's like...
That caused a lot of projections in me.
Forgot about that. That's funny.
I like this idea, right, where it says, from their gazing eyes, she'd slump in her chair. And then you go to your eyes adjust, and there's no one there, right? Because there's still that invitation from the gaze. So in some sense, the mother is not there.
Yeah, it keeps being brought back to the mother.
That also makes me think of like the idea of beauty and the ideal. And like if you're gonna like she represents this to them, but then it's like, can you embody an ideal? Like, can you be an ideal? You know, like you can perhaps we can all be beautiful, but can you like be beauty itself?
But I think for a moment in a specific situation.
Like it makes me think that it makes me think that the last stanza could also be about like in the last stanza she's separated from the ideal. Like the ideal is still the ideal. So and I really like this idea of like the narrator is introduced at the end, and then it's like this narrator is pointing us. It's saying like, I just told you this story, but there's something left to talk about. So like look back and like you know, look at her walking home alone, and she's not afraid of the dark because she has the sunlight in her hair. It's like we're being taken into a story about beauty and a darkness of beauty, the way that like the darkness, and it's like we're talking about the dark and the light, and the dark is trying to like capture the light and blot it out, right? And like the light is trying to shine on the darkness, you know, and like lighten the darkness. And neither one of those things can succeed in a way. And so maybe that's what the last stanza is about. It's like, even if they blot out the sun this night and whatever, that like you can't blot out beauty itself. You can't blot out the ideal. The ideal persists. And then it's like asking us to not interpret this as a sad story, but to look at the entire thing, the entire cycle of, you know, this war of light and darkness, and to almost I don't know, maybe it celebrates that itself.
I'm going back to the ideal and blotting out the ideal, and I think the word nobody cares, right? That's how you blot out the ideal, with care, right? Like we're not caring. That's how the darkness gets in there. Like if you stop caring.
So then it could be that our last stanza is like the narrator saying, I care. I still care though. And so do you, because you just heard this story, and like you hopefully we're not like rooting these guys on, like, yeah, fucking blot out the sun.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like that in connection with the resurrection or redemption, because like if you look at it from the perspective of a moment, right? Like you might actually not care in a moment, right? Like you might be in full nihilism mode, and then it seeps back in some sense, right? And it's the same, but it's different, right? Like so, yeah, I like that idea. And
Yeah,
that's the
maybe.
adjustment of the eyes in some sense, right? It's like, oh, what am I doing? Like coming back to.
Yeah, there's something interesting about those eyes. That the eyes gaze at her and she slumps away. It's funny. Now I'm wondering if the whole song is a projection of the narrator. So it's like he see, what does it mean for sunlight to be in hair? It's like it suggests that I'm gazing at it and I'm seeing the sun, reflect off of your hair. Like I'm seeing it, right? I'm seeing, like, we see things because light hits it and the light reflects off and enters our eye. So it's like it could be that you know, like it could almost be like to the other boys, this is just a normal girl or whatever, and he's only this narrator is seeing the,
But she's also wearing it, right? So what does that mean when you see someone wear sunlight instead of reflect sunlight?
maybe she dyes her hair.
I think it's just poetic expression. It's not about wearing. It's about the sunlight.
Well, my song wasn't totally shallow,
It wasn't
so
shallow
I
at
take it as a
all.
win.
No, it wasn't shallow. Don't worry. And people project things and stuff. Yeah, I actually the thing that saddens me most is that the projection that there might be guilt on a lady's part, and that's why she's at fault, and that's a big problem, right? Like in society, somehow, like the boys, instead of thinking there is fault in them, they would blame mothers and girls. They would not blame fathers who are absent, like, no, the person who actually stayed, or the girl who he likes. So
Oh yeah.
that one I notice is a big problem, unfortunately. Yeah, I guess might be to be solved at some point. Well, Manuel, did you learn anything from that song in general?
Ooh, wow. Switch gears for a second. Yeah, it's interesting where like this progression where there's these activities that sometimes are disconnected, right? And then they grow in a turning away, right? The blotting out of the sun. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's something there about, and maybe this is the point what you're talking about, right? Like where's the line where you're taking responsibility, right? Separate from your parents. And I feel like this turning away and this blotting out the sun is that point, right? Where there's an intentional action, an embrace, and where your responsibility becomes real. And so I feel like there's also a sense of maturation there, but it's not maturation in a healthy environment, although the elements are there, right? Like,
So many things. You know, um, so much was said about the mother and stuff, and that was fascinating. Things I maybe hadn't seen before, and I mean, the main things I'm coming away with are I'm, very happy with the song because it's I wanted to make something that doesn't resolve itself, that requires participation, that can only be resolved like for the listener. And this seems like evidence that that was true. And I also like that by intending that, I couldn't know exactly what it meant. I had to be a little like, I think that there's like hope in it. Something I'm seeing, that there's the hope of the narrator to aspire towards this ideal, to wear sunlight in his own hair, maybe.
Yeah, I think the narrator poetically puts a story into a song and finishes it in a positive way, so that the listener doesn't go completely traumatized away, but keeps that kind of sunlight in the hair, that light sensation, and also notices the beauty around, in a sense. I like that a lot. I like the melody as well. It kind of kept replaying in the head a little bit, kind of an earworm. Yeah, I'm absolutely grateful. I love that song. Thank you, Ezra, for bringing it. Thank you, Manuel, for analyzing with us. Guys, please check out Manuel's YouTube channel, Agapic Orientation, and his podcast with Ezra, which is coming up somewhere later this week, called Unfolding the Soul. Please check out Ezra's YouTube channel, Mad Gleams, and yeah, support my guests, please. I recently read a thing which said, if you want something more of, invest our free time into it. Yeah, thank you.
So invest your free time and subscribe to this channel.
Press the button. Like.
Thank you so much. Should I start?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll read it to you. You guys tell me what it means. Okay? What it means to you. Project freely.
As I keep laughing, it's like Manuel is wearing our heads on a finger. Okay.
Ooh,
Yeah,
popsicles.
Come down. Rivers of love.